Hi friends, welcome back to another video. I hope you guys enjoyed my last video talking about all of my celebrity fragrances. And today I thought it would be fun to talk about my complimented fragrances. So ones I've worn lately that I've garnered a good compliment about. And I figured I would tell you what the compliment was and where I was wearing them to. So without further ado, let's get started. So first off, I have Intense Cafe by Montal. This is a vanilla coffee rose fragrance. I personally find that Montal fragrances are a little bit synthetic, so if something like that bothers you, you probably won't love these because they're very powerful. But I find this to be a well-blended one from the House of Montal. And I went out with a friend of mine dancing, and it was funny because I went into the bathroom and I was touching up my mascara and my lipstick, and I went to put on, just a couple extra spritzes of this, and two girls were waiting in line behind me, and they both were like, "Oh my God, what is that? That smells amazing." And they were like, "Can we wear some?" And so it was funny because when we all walked out, it was like such a wave of intense fragrance. And this is one of those ones that fares really well for date night, evening, cold weather. It's just a very powerful fragrance. I think it might be a little obnoxious to wear in heavy, hot weather during the summer. It would just get a little too intense smelling. But yeah, this one is a good compliment getter. Pretty much every time I've worn this, someone has commented how good it smells. Next up, I have J'adore Absolu, and it's interesting to me because this is a heavy floral fragrance. So this has jasmine, sambac, magnolia, jasmine, Indian tuberose, May rose, and orange blossom. So you've got nothing but florals in this fragrance. But surprisingly enough to me, it smells very soapy and it smells very clean and fresh. Not in a citric way, but in a nice, fresh out the shower. So if you're afraid of floral fragrances and you see that this is literally only florals, don't be afraid, give it a try because it's an incredibly long-lasting fragrance. But I went to see a friend of mine play some music, and she actually got me this for my birthday. And so I figured I'd wear it to see her play. And the minute I walked up to greet everybody, I hadn't even walked up to them fully yet, and one of the girls who I hadn't met was like, "Oh my goodness, you smell amazing." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's actually thanks to Olivia. Thank you very much for my birthday gift." And she was like, "Oh, it smells so great on you." So it's just one of those ones that really travels, it has a lot of projection, and it stays on you, but it doesn't become heavy or vintage or too dusty. It is floral, but it's clean and fresh, and it does have a little bit of a classicness to it, but to me it's just a sophistication, not necessarily a dated scent. Next on the list we have Marc Jacobs Perfect. This is the original EDP, and the notes in this one are rhubarb, narcissus, almond milk, cashmere and cedar. And I've said this in several videos, but this smells like a Jolly Rancher, like a red Jolly Rancher when you first smell it, and I think it's due to that rhubarb. It's got kind of like a sweet tart beginning to it, and as it dries down, it's got that nice woodiness complemented with the almond that gives it a little nutty creaminess. And this one, to me, is the more spring and summertime version, and then the intense tends to be a little bit more winter fall. It's a little bit more gourmand. This tends to be a little bit more fruity, in my opinion. And this one I was wearing when I was working on a client doing her hair, and I had freshly sprayed it right before I went to get her in the parking lot to bring her inside. And I gave her a hug, and she was just like, "Oh my gosh." And she knows that I collect fragrances, right? But she just immediately grabbed my wrist and was like, "Oh, this one's special. This one's really special. It's so well blended." And this one has such personality to me. It's so bright and happy while still having a little bit of alluring bass tone. It has a little bit of that like woodiness to give it a little bit of sophistication, but in my opinion, this is just a really juicy, bright, sweet, happy fragrance. And it's not sweet in the like toothache sweet. I don't like overly sweet fragrances. It's balanced by the rhubarb that gives it a little bit of tartness. So imagine kind of a sweet tart opening with a little bit of woody dry down, and that's what you get with this one. I only have a little mini of this one, but this is actually technically for men, but I got this fragrance at Sephora and I actually ended up using some of my points to get like 3 of these because I love the scent so much. This one is Versace Eros Flame. The notes in this one are mandarin orange, black pepper, chinotto, which I'm not sure what that is, lemon, rosemary, pepper, geranium, rose, vanilla, tonka bean, sandalwood, Texas cedar, patchouli, and oak moss. So typically, I am not a fan of pepper or black pepper in any fragrance. I find it to be irritating to my nose. I find it to be very heavy, but although it's apparent in this, it is. Because it has that mandarin orange and lemon in the beginning, it gives it a zestiness that is very intoxicating, but this is a very, very deep sensual smell. So although it has a brightness in the beginning, you can definitely smell like the vanilla, the tonka bean, the cedarwood. It's got, the sandalwood. It's got a depth to it. This is a rich, deep fragrance. And when I was teaching cosmetology, I wore this one day and I over sprayed it, I over applied it, and I felt like I just felt like I was choking anyone that was near me. So this performs like a beast. Like it really performs well. It has incredible projection, it has incredible sillage, but although I felt like I was choking everyone, all of my students kept coming up and they're like, I want to buy that for my husband. They're like, oh my God, what is that? That smells so good. And I mean, the general consensus is most of my female students weren't interested in wearing it themselves. They were more interested in getting it for their partner. But I love this fragrance to wear because I find it to be sensual, commanding, and attractive. It's a very sexy fragrance to me. And it's one that I would wear on date night if I was wearing like a cool suit or something, just to get in the mindset of a powerful individual. Next up, I have Azzaro Wanted Girl. And the notes in this one are ginger flower, orange blossom, pomegranate, pink pepper, dulce de leche, datura, which is a flower, but I'm not certain how it smells, tonka bean, patchouli, and Haitian vetiver. I said this in a previous video, but Azzaro Wanted Girl, I love the bottle, it looks like a tiny grenade. But I've had this in my collection for quite some time, and personally, it's not really the profile that I go for too frequently because it's a little too sweet to me. To me, this smells a fair amount like a caramel version of Black Opium by YSL, so not so much the coffee note, but although the tonka bean kind of gives it a little similar vibe, the dulce de leche, it's just very sweet, it's lactonic, and it's got a little bit of pepperiness from the pink pepper in there, which, like I said in the last one, not usually a fan of pepper that much, but I do think that this is a nice fragrance. I think a lot of people would enjoy this fragrance if you like sweet, amber, rich fragrances. To me, it's a little too sweet, but I can recall that I oversprayed this one, not realizing that the note profile was as heavy as it was. I kind of was a little too liberal in my application, and I wore it to a doctor's appointment, and the gal at the checkout desk, the minute I walked up, she was like, I need you to write down what that fragrance is because I want to buy it immediately. And so, I mean, I was a little bit embarrassed that I hadn't even really gotten all the way up when she was like asking what the fragrance was, because I felt like, oh my God, I'm being that obnoxious person that you're like 30 feet away from and you're like, yeah, you have too much perfume on right now. But it is, I would consider this a sexy fragrance. I think it's one of those fragrances that I would like on someone other than me. I think that it just doesn't fit my personality all that well because it's a little too sweet and that's not me, but I think that on another person this would be a very, very sexy fragrance. I think that it's very feminine, but very domineering, very powerful, very strong. So if you are a very feminine person, but you are very direct and you're very commanding, I think this would be a good fragrance for you. And last but not least, I have Kayali Utopia Vanilla Coco. I absolutely adore this fragrance, and I was sad to see that in a lot of videos that I watched of people reviewing the Kayali fragrances, a lot of people said that they didn't really care for this one, and I urge you, for those of you at home who like floral fragrances, to check this one out, because although it's called Vanilla Coco, I think that's the reason that a lot of people didn't care for it, is because it's a little bit misleading. So let me read you the notes on this one so I can clarify. So in the top we have coconut milk, pear blossom, honeysuckle, and Italian lemon. In the mid we have jasmine sambac, gardenia, tuberose, and ambrette. And in the base we have bourbon vanilla, sandalwood, musk, and patchouli. So this is a vanilla coconut fragrance, but it is dominated by floral. So you've got the tuberose, you've got the gardenia, the jasmine. So those tend to be a little bit more classic in fragrance. And so if you're not into white florals, you're not going to like this. So it's a little bit misleading. But once again, I'll say I get a little bit of soapiness from this, a little bit, but it is a rich fragrance. It is a little heavy, but I think that it wears phenomenally in cold weather or in evening time when you want a little bit more of a statement piece. And this one to me is cozy and warm and inviting. And I have a friend of mine who's not even really into fragrances, and I hadn't even bought this one yet. Like, I sampled it. So I sprayed a little on myself to see like if it was gonna give me a headache or if it got too weird on me. But I went to see her that night and I gave her a hug and she was like, ooh, that one is good. That one is strong, but it's good. I really did not think that she would like this one. But like I said, if you guys like white floral and you like gourmand, kind of rich, dark, heavier fragrances, check this one out, because honestly, out of the line, this has to be one of my favorites, and I was so sad to see how many people were not into this fragrance. So that's all I have for today. These are my complimented fragrances of the moment. I'd like to make this a series, so I'm gonna try out a bunch of my fragrances and see what people have to say about them, and then I'll report back to you guys. So let me know if you like this kind of video, just so that way I can give kind of individual reviews of fragrances in my collection. And if you didn't check it out, last week I have a video going over my celebrity fragrances. I only have 5, so if you haven't already, go suggest me on the comments of that video a celebrity fragrance that you can't live without, so that way I can incorporate it into my next video. And I thank you guys for watching, and until next time, bye!